Fish on First has partnered with About the Fans to launch a merchandise collection. Rep the FOF logo and more Marlins-inspired apparel. Find it all at aboutthefans.com. Enter coupon code FOF10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. FOF10 for a 10% discount.
This is Griffin Conan.
This is Xavier Edwards.
This is Liam Hicks.
This is Dave Myers, and you're watching Fish on First live.
FOF Live, late night with FOF. I think this is tied for our latest live stream of the season, if not the latest one to this point. As we always do, heading into every new Marlins series, we're going to talk about what's up with the Marlins, what's coming up next, and we always enjoy all of your comments and support for what we do. I am Eli Sussman. I think this is the second straight time that I'm hosting for some reason, but I think I do a solid job at it. Joined by Kevin Burrell, Isaac Azout, Nate Karsmer. We're presented by About the Fans. Check out our merch at aboutthefans.com, the FOF collection, hats, t-shirts, stickers, inspired by the Marlins, and also just repping our own brand. It supports what we do, and we appreciate everybody that invests in that. And we're going to start right away with the relatively new breaking news about Max Meyer, as reported by Christina Di Nicola. She's out in San Francisco. We're not. We're all back home for this. And the confirmation that this is a very significant hip injury. He's been on the IL for several weeks now. I think I'll just throw it straight to Kevin, because at last we kind of had this ominous feeling that this was going to be a very significant injury, even though it was not arm related. So now he has surgery scheduled for Friday, recovery 6 to 8 months, obviously rules him out for the year. If things go smoothly, should be ready for spring training, but still, he has not had anything remotely close to a full healthy season in professional baseball, or at least not the major league level, since being drafted as the top guy. And Kevin, it's just a bummer considering that how good Max looked in spring training for really that first month of the regular season as well. And now this injury has really completely halted that momentum that he had for himself.
Yeah, I think you originally thought, he was struggled against a couple teams, the Rockies, and his that last start before, landing on the IL. You assume this was like a phantom thing, but it's as legit as it gets. And we had spoken to him the day of Adam Major's debut, and he had really just said, I'm going to go see a specialist, but really don't know what's going on with the hip. No one really knows. I don't even know if it's feeling better or worse. And obviously went to this specialist, and they recommended season-ending surgery. Originally, when we spoke to Daniel Moskis on Sunday, he had compared this to Drew Smiley last season, who had some hip issues, increased his velo, and just had to lay off for a couple weeks. They assumed that would be the case with Meyer, I'm guessing, and obviously it wasn't. And he's now out for the season. As you noted, he got off to an awesome start this spring, was using all his pitches very well, mixing everything pretty well. And then just the season started, and it was slider heavy, and really just went back to what he was doing last season, really not incorporating the sinker, not incorporating the sweeper, the two pitches that he added throughout the spring that he told us himself that he felt very confident using. So I just found that interesting that he didn't use those, and obviously came back to bite him towards the end of, I guess, his season, really struggling against a couple teams. And, well, I'm guessing he'll go on the 60-day, and that'll open up a 40-man spot. We'll see how they use that. Hopefully, you would assume it makes most sense to just add another pitcher to a 40-man. Never hurts to have some depth. So I'm assuming that'll be the case. But yeah, tough loss. And I think, it goes back to a lot of what we were saying. And obviously the Weathers one isn't really known what really happened. It was obviously during that Tampa start towards the latter end of it, as Moskis noted. But, this dude was clearly injured. It was noticed. They said it himself. This has been something that had been lingering him the last couple starts. Max Meyer had not been pitching well the last couple of starts before the last start against the Rockies. And then it just goes to say we saw the velo jump and all that stuff. And the Marlins are big on having a lot of high velo guys. We drafted certain pitchers out of the draft. The certain guys they signed to minor league deals or whatever it may be. The only was Kyle Quantrill, who was our only major league signing. But it just goes to show that, it may just not be all about the velo sometimes. And you're forcing the velo out of certain guys the way they're prepared. I don't know. I think it goes back. This injury also stems back to spring training and the way they prepared certain guys. And I think the way they prepared Meyer maybe wasn't the most efficient way. So we'll see how it all ends up working out for him. But yeah, tough loss for sure.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with your mic right there the last minute or so.
Yeah, my bad.
It's
It's good now?
Never. It's,
No.
it's still staticky on us. So just we'll try to get that reset. But yeah. So with this Max out of the equation for the time being, just give us a refresher in terms of what the rotation looks like for now. Sandy, Cal, Edward, Jansen, Junk. We'll talk about more about him in a minute. And Yuri right there. I guess the big winner here, Isaac, would be somebody like Jansen Junk, right? Who overlooked, who himself has impressed since spring training, but obviously was way lower on the totem pole heading into the year. Finally got that first start last week and did well with it against the Braves. And now there's less immediate pressure in terms of people that might knock him out of there. It seems like that's the one guy for the time being that will get a longer leash than anticipated as a result of Max being sidelined.
Yeah, long term for sure. That seems to be the big winner. I think Adam Mazur is another big winner. I think a couple of the other few guys in the minor leagues and Robbie Snelling are also going to be winning because, guys, you see Max Meyer out for the year. Weathers, who knows how long that's going to be. Cabrera and Sandy are I would say 50-50 shot of getting traded in the next month or so. So this rotation is going to be so depleted for these last months of the regular season that everyone's gonna have a shot, and I think that's great for this team in this situation. Like you said, Jansen Jung, Yuri Perez. I don't know what they're gonna do with Quantrill for the second half of the season, depending on how he's pitching. If he's tradable, we shall see. But yeah, you got to think the young guys, especially Mazur. I think he looked a lot better than what the line would suggest. I think Mazur looked pretty damn good in his Marlins debut against the Phillies. I think you see him up eventually as soon as someone else continues to falter, whether that be Quantrill or Junk or whoever it may be. I think he's the next guy. And then you have a couple of other top rated guys expected to make their debut at some point in the year. And just back to Meyer, this is what you were worried about with such a small frame, a small body third overall pick. He was a reliever most of his college years at Minnesota. And along with the worries of him not being a good starting pitcher because of lack of repertoire, the other worry was stability. It was him not staying healthy. And it's come to fruition, unfortunately, almost every single year of his professional career. He has been unable to throw more than 120 innings or whatever the number may be. It's just 100. It's frustrating. Yeah. With Mr. Max, whether it's at AAA or the major leagues, he has not been able to go be very durable, unfortunately. So I think you do have to take a look in the mirror and see what he is going to be when he comes back next year. He's going to report to spring training. He should be good to go for spring training. And I think you have to have a different expectation for this right-handed pitcher now coming off yet another major surgery. I think some of us have been saying for a while now, maybe it's time to try him out as a multi-inning reliever. I think that from day one was the best case scenario for him. And I think now, like I said, with his second major surgery, I think you have no choice but that.
Especially, I hope my mic works now, especially with as you noted, Isaac, you have Mazur, you have Snelling. Snelling needs to be added to the 40 man. I believe he could go Rule 5 this upcoming season if he isn't added. Obviously, they will add him, so that this is probably their best opportunity. So there's guys in the minors that they could call up right now, like and those two specifically. And yeah, I think at this point, with the amount of pitching talent that they have, and they get potentially acquired at the trade deadline, I'm sure they'll try to find some pitching, and we'll see what they do through the draft. There's going to be a lot of pitching talent coming through this organization, meaning the pressure's on for Meyer to either figure it out as a starter or as Isaac noted, just make the move back to having him as a reliever, which could probably be the best case at this point, just the way the pick has turned out. But yeah, tough to lose, for him, obviously, because he had gotten off to such a good start. And then unfortunately it just kind of faltered. And who knows? I mean, it feels like a lot of that was due to the injury.
Some of the ripple effects here. He is arbitration eligible next year for the first time. We briefly touched on this in our private chat. So just to clarify, he does get a raise moving forward, more than major league minimum, but because of the lack of production and volume in his big league career, it's only slightly above that. He's still a guy that is certainly going to be on this roster, and we'll see how the recovery goes. If they, depending on how they feel with other arms that they have, he would still have some sort of trade value if it comes to that. We know through the years that his name has trickled into various trade conversations. So certainly not an untouchable guy, even though he was a former number 3 overall pick. But I flashed the stats a moment ago. The fact that we're now 5 years removed from the draft, and he's been a replacement level guy in the big leagues. So as good as he looked this year, there did seem to be some meaningful changes to his game this year. But all that does is kind of, maybe in part due to pitching through this injury, didn't fully cancel out the struggles that he had last year at the big league level, and then during his very initial cup of coffee back in 2022. So it was, all things considered, man, the jury is still very much out on him. And sometimes it's not fair. Sometimes with guys that have durability concerns, you don't get to see the best version of themselves for a sustained period. We hope that's not the case. He still has those, I think it's 4 more years of team control ahead of him. There still is time to figure this out. But this was such a golden opportunity for him to stick in a rotation, to build up his volume. The pressure really wasn't on all that much in terms of his results this year, but he was somebody that you could see a path to him being really successful this year as long as he stayed healthy, and wasn't able to do that. Anything else that we haven't covered, Nate, on Max that's on your mind you want to touch on here?
I think it just adds on to what a disaster this has been for this year's rotation, especially in a rebuilding year, like we've noted, like we've known for the past couple months. And Bratz goes down early, and then Ryan goes down a couple weeks ago, and now Matt's. A lot of young guys you want to get a lot of run, just as we've seen with Edward Cabrera, 27 years old. You never know what you could have in a guy. You want to get them all the reps they can, especially in a lost year like this. So really, really tough. And honestly, after that start, let me go back to the date. After April 21st in Cincinnati, when he struck out, was it 14? Every start since then, he's allowed pretty much 5 or 4 runs in every start, except for that one in Chicago, that day game on that Wednesday. But you could tell something was wrong for a while. I'm not sure how long it's been mismanaged for, but it certainly was mismanaged. When your pitcher has clearly not right, it's been affecting him for a while. And obviously, when he gave up 10 hits to the Rockies, it was extremely evident. It was right in front of their face. But I feel like a couple starts back, they definitely could have realized it. Easier said than done, of course, but you want to see that managed a little bit better. But yeah, just another really gut punch for this rotation that had a lot running into the season.
Now that I'm thinking through the opening day rotation, Max was in there and he's gone. We're just a couple days removed from Connor Gillespie being claimed off waivers. He was actually in the opening day rotation. Beyozo was in the opening day rotation, if I remember correctly. He's still on the active roster. He's hiding in plain sight, but he's still around, just not in the rotation anymore. Who else was there? Weathers was hurt. And Sandy was there, of course. He's been the constant. And Quantrill's been the Iron Man, I guess, because he's the one that's made pretty much every single scheduled start to this point, and we're going to see him again tonight. Really quickly, we can touch on the previous series against the Braves, because it was somewhat of a surprise to win that series. Braves have been inconsistent this year, but better as of late coming into this one. And the Marlins took 2 out of 3 right here. To me, Kevin, like, the standout thing was just starting pitching as a whole, even kind of on the topic of Max, but the guys that are actually healthy, trending in the right direction. Jansen Junk went really well, all things considered, 5 innings against the Braves. And with Yuri, the results were pretty bad, but the stuff was electric. And then there's Sandy in that final game, just continuing to do what he has been doing the previous few starts, where it's another quality outing from him.
Yeah, I mean, with Junk, it's impressive, to say the least, the way that they've been able to pinpoint certain things that maybe hadn't worked for him in prior stops at the major league level that now are working for him. And it's just filling up the zone, not being scared of who you're facing, just going there, attacking the strike zone. And that's why I think he didn't walk anyone in that start against the Braves. Didn't walk anyone, struck out 5. You could even start making the case that he could go a little bit longer into these outings, just the way that how efficient he has been throughout these outings. And I guess it helped the Marlins that they were facing a guy who was debuting, and that's why Augustin was able to hit the 3-run shot there in the bottom of the 3rd. And then I think with Yuri, the line really doesn't speak for how good he was. I think it was pretty great, probably his best start of the bunch so far that he's made. So I was really impressed. I think it was really just towards the end there. He gave up the 2 earned, and not much you could do after that. And finally, Sandy. I think Sandy looked good. Looked really good. Again, similar to the Philly start, I think the Braves just made him work a lot. A lot of foul balls, a lot of deep counts, running up the pitch count. But overall, I think it's another good step for Sandy. And I think he went 6 of 95 pitches. I think now you're looking at the next star, which I think is going to be Arizona, the lineup that has really been hit by injuries. So it's a really good opportunity for him to go out there and really hopefully be the first Marlins starter to go 7 innings of work. But overall, as you noted, Eli, really good overall pitching weekend for the Marlins, and I guess a good weekend for guys like Augustin, who obviously had the homer, and then overall, I mean, Dane Myers continues to be awesome for this team. Still have no clue why the hell he's hitting 9th in this lineup. And yeah, I mean, overall, a really good weekend for the Marlins. I mean, look at the first game, 9 hits, and then obviously 5, and that second one did not go very well in Flanagan's net, and then 12. I mean, out hit the Braves 2 out of 3 games and ended up winning 2 of them, obviously. So couldn't have asked for a better weekend against the NL division opponent. Now you are 12-12 against the NL East, so not terrible.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So overall, pretty encouraging. Acuna still won MVP by our measures. That just goes to show that even when you have success overall, he was doing his best trying to carry the team overall. But even that being said, didn't quite get done. And in that middle game, even though the offensive production wasn't there, they had their opportunities. They drew a ton of walks in that one and just a ton of runners left on base in that situation where at least they were putting up a fight. And as frustrating as it could be, it showed that there's some potential there. That Saturday game, making history, they actually reused the lineup from earlier this year. They ended the streak of constantly shuffling again and again and again. And actually tonight, they're using that same lineup again tonight. It's going to be the 3rd time of a pretty consistent group of guys in a way that we have not had at any other point this season so far. I did want to, now that we have Alex Carver in with us, there were a couple farm system things I wanted to touch on with Carver, including tonight as we're talking, the return of Starling Caba. He's back after a 2+ month hiatus, and I think it's a good time just to remind people what the deal is with Caba. Now that we've barely seen him so far this year due to missing a couple months with that thumb injury. But now he's back. He's leading off for Jupiter. And this is a guy that is one of the best prospects in this organization, Carver. We just, he really needs these reps to establish himself as an offensive player. We know what he can do defensively. And then hopefully this second half of the season is enough time for him to take strides forward at the plate.
So it's either one of two things. Either they overreacted to the injury or they wanted him to just get time to improve and put him on the IL for that long in order to do reps behind the scenes and try to recover. But obviously we didn't see him in any FCL games. We didn't see him anywhere else. So maybe he was doing work behind the scenes. I don't know. We'd have to ask that question. But I think that overall to put him on the 60-day for a thumb injury, that I think that was probably not the best decision to do. This guy needs reps. He needs reps. He needs to be in games. He needs to be appearing in games, and he needs to be getting at bats. So maybe they misinterpreted the injury. That's my best guess. To put him on the 60-day and then not have any rehab time at all. Maybe he just recovered ahead of time. I don't know. But that's definitely odd to see a player go on the 60-day injured list and then just appear all of a sudden back in the starting lineup and he's leading off at shortstop. Definitely odd. But, there's something went on there. I don't know what, but there's definitely something that happened there. But I'm glad to see him back. It's cool. And we'll hopefully see him get continued reps with the Hammerheads as he goes, because that's exactly what he needs is repetition. That's it.
Yeah, pretty good. That's kind of the same group that they had at the start of the year that people were excited about, with PJ Marlando recently coming back from his own injury. Carter Johnson still in there. Of course, Andrew Salas playing center field tonight. Dylan Head is still there. So on the one hand, it's a little annoying that none of those guys have gotten promoted at various points this year. So they're all still in Jupiter at the midway point of the year. But it is to see all of them together at least gets you dreaming and makes it really compelling to follow them on a nightly basis right there.
It's not like they've been good though. Like
they've all had injuries. Like Caba got injured, Morlando has had injury, Head has had injury. They've all been injured. So they need reps. They need to have reps. That's exactly what they need. For Caba to this 60-day thing is the qualm that I would have. I don't, if he's going to return right away in this fashion and lead off in the lineup, get the most at bats of anybody in the lineup and play shortstop, did he really need to be on the 60-day? They may have overreacted a little bit. But yeah, it's been injuries, so you can't really blame them. But yeah, I think at points in the season you will see some guys get called out for sure.
Another, go
A
ahead.
lot
Kevin.
of those guys have been disappointing, to be honest with you. Aside from like Dylan Head maybe getting a lot of stolen bases, like Andrew Sauce has kind of fallen back down to earth. Valor just really has never been able to consistently get it going. It's been a pretty good. And Carter Johnson just don't know what he's doing in low A, honestly, at this rate. Like, let's be honest. It should be an FCL. Like this has been a disappointing lineup. Like, there's no like the one guy who's hitting well is Cam Clayton, and he's a college hitter. He's a college draft pick. Like no one else is hitting over 250 in this lineup except Cam Clayton. That's it. So,
Yeah, well, I will say recently, Andres Valor has had this pretty.
He has been very good as of late, but overall,
he was the one that got off to maybe the slowest start of the group, and then it's been that last month or so where he's kind of carrying things. But
yeah.
Another prospect thing I wanted to touch on was Jared Cerna going on the IL in Pensacola. I found the video of it where he kind of just jammed his pinky into the bag when he was diving back on a pickoff attempt. And this is a guy we were pretty high on. I think Alex's camera's out. So Nate, if you want to hop in just a little bit on this, we were pretty high on him entering the year, and he's already on the 40-man roster. Thought it would be somebody that could be on the radar for a call up by the end of the season. Really liked him as a hitter, but it's been somewhat of a lost year for him. He had been in the lineup almost every single day for Pensacola, but not hitting for any power whatsoever. Not really hitting for average the way we thought he would. And now he's going to miss maybe just a little bit of time. Again, it looks like just his pinky finger, but still, this is a guy that I guess when we have to update rankings next month or so, he's somebody that inevitably would have to drop quite a bit, just considering how unproductive he's been.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I think this can honestly help him. He's had a really tough start to the year, like you said, Eli. I think him maybe just getting away from the field for a week or two. I don't know, obviously, how severe a pinky injury is. It is his throwing hand, though. I believe it is his right hand, but still, just maybe him getting away for a little bit, doing some recovering, getting his mind off baseball could be helpful, because this guy, like you said, really came into last year after that Jazz trade super hot. He was a doubles machine, and this year he is, like you said, hit for absolutely zero power, 2 doubles. He has 2 doubles the entire season. After I think he probably had 4 in the first week, it felt like, in early August. So yeah, really not doing much of the bat at all, not hitting for average or power for that matter. Still all right at shortstop, but really just a disappointment. Don't want to overreact too much, but I think just like you alluded to, probably will take a little bit of a dip in our prospect rankings. But just, yeah, I think disappointing is the only word you can use for Jared Cerna. But hopefully, like I said, this can maybe reset his mind a little bit, get him back on track to where he was last summer.
Just for anybody that's not familiar, came over in the Jazz trade along with Augustin Ramirez, Abraham Ramirez as well in that one. And at the time of the trade, we thought Cerna would the second piece of the deal, but maybe not that huge a gap between him and Gus. And since then, Gus has he solidified himself, and then he's even graduated from prospect status at this point into being in the middle of the Marlins lineup on a daily basis so far. I did want to already start looking over on some things about this upcoming series. Actually, I want to take like a bigger picture idea now that we're barely a month until the trade deadline. This Giants team is a contending team. They're 10 games over 500. They haven't been in the playoffs in a few years. They've already made what could be the biggest trade of this whole midseason trading season by getting Devers already. We'll see how the rest of the chips fall, but getting Devers itself was a pretty splashy move, and somebody that has already changed their team pretty noticeably. Kevin put out an article today about the possibility of a Sandy deal with them. But yeah, just bigger picture, Kevin, this is as with any contending team that's trying to win right now, and the Marlins being in the position that they're in, there is the potential for these teams to hook up on a trade deadline deal. They haven't made, as far as I can remember, any really significant deals since Bendix has taken over. But now they're kind of in this position where I think the Giants will be one of the many teams that are having conversations with the Marlins, always having conversations, and especially leading up to the deadline, that there could be something that comes together. I don't know if it'll be as sexy as a Sandy deal, but there could be a match here between these teams.
Definitely. And it's been a long time since the Marlins and the Giants have actually swung a deal. Actually, I think the last one was them in 2022 or 23 getting Hayden Cantrell. So that was the last one I remember. It was a couple of years back.
Really tiny one.
Yeah, extremely. But like, I guess a trade's a trade. But I don't see them as the top team that needs a starting pitcher. I think their starting pitching has been fine. They have Robbie Ray, Justin Verlander has been all right. You have who's the other guy? Oh my God, Logan Webb.
Logan Webb, yes.
Logan Webb, and they have a couple other younger guys. Hayden Birdsong, I think, is in there too. So they could use Sandy for sure. I mean, Verlander is towards the latter end of his career. It makes sense to get someone like Sandy with a couple years of control left. You have the team option. So may as well trade for him and try to see if you can get Bryce Eldridge, who I would be shocked if they traded him, because if they didn't move him in the trade to get Rafael Devers, who's objectively a top 10 player, a top 15 player in baseball, I would be very surprised if they moved him for Sandy Alcantara. But if the Marlins if the Giants are all in on winning in 2025 and they want to try to beat out the Dodgers, may as well go for Sandy. And you noted this to me, Eli, how bad their catching situation has been offensively this season. As good as Patrick Bailey is defensively, that catching tandem is the worst in baseball when it comes to WRC plus and batting average. As crazy as it sounds, Nick Fortes would be a plus to that team's lineup when it comes to their offense. His month of June is getting him into let's trade him conversations. And you trade him and Sandy to the same team, I think there's something there that could be done. But as crazy as it sounds, Nick Fortes is a plus offensively for the Giants at the catching position. And it's another good defensive catcher. At the end of the day, you would have probably the best defensive catching tandem in baseball with Patrick Bailey and Fortes. So even if it isn't Sandy, I think there's a smaller deal there to be done, and they could use the bats. I think any day of the week too, if you want to see what they could get for Sanchez or any other bat in there. I think never hurts to try. So I think these guys, in some sort of ways, could definitely hook up on a trade package.
I would hate to disagree, but Nick Fortes has zero trade value, and there's no team in baseball that's going to trade for that player. I mean,
However, Austin Hedges was traded last year.
I understand what you're saying, that they have a poor catching situation, but he doesn't. They're going to go for players that make that catching situation a lot better, and Nick Fortes does not do a lot to make it a lot better. So Sandy can throw to anyone. If they trade Sandy, that doesn't. If they trade Sandy, it doesn't mean they have to trade Nick Fortes to the same team.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
Nick Fortes has zero trade value. That player is not getting traded unless it's a throw-in. That's it.
Not what I'm saying, Carver. Not what I'm saying.
Okay. Well, Nick Fortes is not getting traded from the Marlins. I don't think that's going to happen.
I think they should trade him.
You know what? I couldn't agree more with. I can't believe I'd ever say this, but I agree wholeheartedly with Alex Carver. Kevin, we spoke about this on Unfiltered. We spoke about it earlier today on a call. Nick Fortes is much more valuable to the Marlins starting pitching staff and to the bullpen and everyone else in the organization than he is to any other contender in baseball. I don't care how bad a catchy tandem is. Nick Fortes is not going to get traded. There's
bad, and then there's really bad. That's where the Giants are at right now.
Nick Fortes makes it no better. You're not getting. He doesn't make it any
better.
He
does, Carver. Yes, he does.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. When your catching tandem is the worst in WRC plus, and it's not even close to 50, by the way, you trade for something to make it somewhat
right,
but not this player, not him.
Teams have acquired Austin Hedges, who is a horrid offensive catcher. Horrid.
Well, Austin Hedges is light years ahead of Fortes defensively. Austin Hedges is one of the best defensive catchers in baseball.
I'm not disagreeing with that. But I think the Marlins could get something for Fortes. I'm not saying a top 30 prospect, but they could get something, especially with the control.
What could they get? What could they get?
Something, man. I'm not asking for fucking.
Okay, what is something? What is something? What is something?
They can get a cheeseburger from Obi's on the concourse, maybe. That'll play well.
Hey, come on, man.
Well, no, Kevin, my argument would be, okay, you're saying they can get something, whether it's like a fringe, like a Wilfredo Lara type prospect, like not even that. They can't even get that. But even if you can get something minuscule, is it really worth it to completely do this to your starting pitching and take away their favorite catcher just to get something like that?
Winning, man.
Huh?
You don't care about winning.
That's not the point. I'm saying
the point is not winning.
They want Augustine to catch. They want Liam Hicks obviously to catch because he's catching tonight too. They want him to catch.
Ramirez catches once a week.
You're not going to add a fourth next year.
Yeah, because Joe Mack really needs to be on the Major League roster soon.
Next year, yeah.
Okay, Kevin. Okay, I guess I don't know what I'm talking about.
And that's when they could just, literally, Kevin, they could literally just DFA Nick Fortes and it would make no difference.
Oh
my God.
If what you're saying is true, that Joe Mack needs to be on the team, and he does push his way next season, next season, not this season, but next season, they could literally DFA Nick Fortes and lose nothing. It doesn't matter. It would not literally would
You
not
don't
matter
DFA a guy with that many
to
years of
value to the organization. What Isaac is saying is true. Right now, the pitchers that are learning in the organization would like to have this player around. There's no reason to trade him. They could not get literally anything in a trade for that player. That does not make any sense. That comment that they could include him in a trade makes zero sense at all to the organization, number one, and to that player, number two. No one wants him.
Okay, thanks, Carver.
I do think that if you were released or cut, designated, I think maybe, but
they're not going to do that right now. Maybe next season, yeah, but they're not going to include him in a trade, even as a throw-in. It wouldn't even make sense.
It wouldn't. I think that you need to keep him to continue catching some of the young guys that you have.
I disagree, but disagreements are healthy. Someone told me.
You think Agustin Ramirez is the best catcher for these?
I'm not saying that. By no means am I saying that. But the way the organization has clearly indicated they want that guy to catch.
No, they don't.
Why isn't he playing first base then, Isaac?
Because
why would they put Liam Hicks to play first base over Agustin Ramirez? Liam Hicks is clearly the better defensive catcher. Why is he not catching over? Why is he playing first base over Agustin Ramirez?
He is catching. Liam Hicks is catching just as much as Ramirez.
Why isn't Agustin playing first base, Isaac?
Because he's DHing for the rest of his life. He's never going to play first base. They don't need him to play first base. They don't care.
You guys will have to play first base.
No, they don't. That's not how baseball works, Kevin. You don't just put a guy at first base. That's not how it works.
He's played it before, Isaac. He's played it before.
They don't care about Liam Hicks, so they put him at first base. They're not going to put Ramirez at a brand new position like that. It's not. Okay, that's it. It's not how that works.
Kevin doesn't have a point.
Okay, I'm done. Okay, I guess I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, Isaac, sounds good.
That's not how that works, Kevin.
No, I guess I don't know what I'm talking about clearly because the guy's been fucking playing first base before.
Okay.
I'm not wrong, Isaac. You could check the numbers.
I know he's played first base before.
Liam Hicks and Agustin Ramirez have both played first base before in the minor leagues. They've both done it. Is it shitty? Yeah. But have they done it? Yeah.
All I'm saying is that no other team in baseball wants Nick Fortes in a trade. No one. No one wants that player in a
Carver,
trade.
I promise you there is a team that would trade for Nick Fortes.
No, there is not.
If there is a team that trades for Matt Tice, of all players, there is a team that will trade for Nick Fortes.
No one's trading for that player, Kevin. No one.
Yes, there will be. I promise you, Carver, there's a team that will want him. I promise you.
Okay.
Okay, we can go on.
Yeah, no, I would love to.
Well, okay.
What?
I agree with Kevin that I think there are teams that would trade for him. I also agree. Ultimately, I don't know if it'd be significant, but again, I think there was a reason why we bundled him in this trade scenario. You can read about it on the site, just how severely lacking in catcher production the Giants are and how they've been the backup that they thought they had entering the year. He's been hurt all year. And the cycle of backups they've had coming in have been worse. Fortes is better than those guys. He also has several years of control beyond this year, which means something. Means something in the trade market, years of club control, even if the player's upside is not particularly high.
What would they get back? What do you think they would get? Like, if that were to happen, Eli, what do you think they would get back? A C-type prospect, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Not a whole lot. The idea, of course, is to bundle him with, if he's bundled with another more productive, more valuable Marlins player.
Fine, but I don't know. I don't know.
I think you guys are undervaluing what Fortes does. I really think you are.
I think Isaac is right that he makes more sense to stay with a growing organization than to another team to just trade him for nothing.
Okay, how long is he going to last with the Marlins after this season?
That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Right. If the Marlins become a winner next season, you can DFA him immediately. That literally doesn't matter.
You don't DFA a player with that many years of control.
What matters is that he means something to a growing team. That's what matters.
The Marlins non-tendered Brian Anderson with 3 years of control. Give me a break, Kevin.
And what Isaac is saying is that the Marlins have nothing to lose by keeping him in a lineup on a team that's going to lose 100 games. So
he's going to catch.
If he stays around and it helps pitchers like Mazer and others that they may call up, like just in terms of continuity, you don't trade him for nothing. So I think that's what Isaac is saying, and I agree with that.
Look at the catcher ERAs.
Yeah, there has been a big gap in that regard for what it's worth in terms of pitcher production, depending on who they're throwing to, and they've been a lot better throwing
just for Liam Hicks production
than the other guys.
Just for the ERA for Hicks to go down.
Oh, there's no question that Fortes is definitely the best defensive catcher
I'm
on
not
the team.
arguing
like
that, though.
That's
I'm
not. That's not a question.
By no means am I arguing that. I'm
Okay,
just
so
saying
why
I think
wouldn't you keep that around
I
for
think
Yuri,
I think
for
there is a
Sandy,
little
for all
more
these other guys?
value.
Why wouldn't you do
Fortes
that?
has more value than you believe. is what
To
I
the
think.
Marlins. To the Marlins, yes.
Okay, Carver.
Not to another team.
We
That's
can
the
move on to the lineups.
Let's look at these lineups for the series opener between the
Kevin, that's in the
Marlins
list.
and Giants.
Go ahead, add it to the list, Carver. I can't wait for the trade to draw, man. You guys are gonna fucking hear it from me.
Kev, hey, this is a child-friendly network. We don't curse.
Have you seen the chat today?
It seems like there's been more cursing on this stream than any
Yeah, I
other
was gonna
total
say.
part this season.
No, I just look at the
The
comments.
Mets can use a Nick Fortes, right? Yeah.
Nick Fortes has more value than you think.
Go for it. Write it
This
down.
isn't a group call, Carver. This is
That's what we made it out to be.
Well, I alluded to this earlier. The Marlins are reusing a lineup we've already seen. We saw this on Saturday. We saw it the week before, I think the opener of the Philly series as well. Look at that. X, Sanchez, Otto, Gus, Stowers, Wagaman, Hicks, Norby, and Dane Myers right
look
there.
who's catching.
And it's Hicks that is catching tonight.
Finally. About time. He should be catching over goddamn
Yeah.
Ramirez.
Well, yeah, to slightly change this.
But Nick Fortes, right?
I think something we're all pretty aligned on is the fact that Dane continues to hit at the very bottom of the lineup against right-handed pitching every single time. So tonight they're facing Verlander, amazing resume, but somebody who's this stage of his career, not a particularly imposing pitcher. He wasn't good last year, and this year he's been kind of average-ish, and he's actually missed quite a bit of time due to injury. Most recently, I think he was out on the paternity list anyway. With Dane, even though he has splits, he's amazing against left-handed pitching. He's been better than he used to be against righties as well, and he's been just a very good offensive player overall, and he continues to be in the number 9 spot. With Nate, what do you think? What would you do? Where would you like? I'm assuming that you are on board with rearranging this a little bit. Where should Dane be in games like this? Because more often than not, he's in the bottom third of the lineup.
Personally, I think you slide him third and just move everyone else down. He is then the best hitter on the team for the past month. Or maybe you can slide him at third and then flip Augustine and Otto. And then you have a pretty good lineup from top to bottom, especially if Connor Norby can figure it out at the plate. I don't know why he continues to hit 9th. I mean, if they're deciding to use this lineup over again, this is the one where he hits 9th, so I guess they wanted to make him feel comfortable in that second leadoff role, which I don't understand. He's, like I said, he hits for more power than probably 90% of the roster, gets on base, which is good for a double leadoff guy like him, but I really don't understand it. I definitely, Nets Homestead, I want to get an explanation of why they continue to hit him down there under guys like Eric Wagaman and Connor Norby, who can't, he couldn't hit the far side of a barn right now at the plate. So he is, it continues to baffle me, but I guess we'll have to see. And if it works there, then I can't complain too much, but it's definitely something that continues to confuse me.
I did ask about this, and the explanation I got, which I sort of think of it as baloney, but the explanation I got was that the number 9 spot in their lineup, they like to have one of their better hitters in. They consider it a top 5 spot in the order from like 1. I think 2 is their number 1.
Why?
I'm not saying I like
to turn the lineup over.
I think it's baloney. I see like with like a D Gordon type, you have him hitting 9th.
Yeah, like Sanoha, like that would make sense.
But this is not that situation. The argument I was told was that there is always men on base every time he comes up to the plate when he's hitting 9th or 8th or whatever it is. And I have looked back, and that's true. He is usually hitting with runners in scoring position. He's been guarding into a lot of double plays, but he is hitting with runners in scoring position more often than not. So that was sort of one of the things. But then I looked back, and also Nick Fortes was hitting 9th a lot. So I don't know. So that
have
was
you seen his OPS in the month of June.
That was an explanation that I got.
To follow up on that, the most used number 9 hitter for the Marlins by far this year is Sanoha. And then it's Fortes, then it's Graham Pauley. They weren't putting Graham Pauley there.
Yeah.
But like Sanoha makes a ton of sense because he's patient and he could just get like a simple base hit and turn it over. Like that makes sense.
That's why I said it was a load of balonies early in the season. I remember Pauley hitting 9th, and I didn't think to make that argument at the time, unfortunately. But they have weird things with Dane. He wasn't even starting early in the season or playing much at all. So
Yeah,
It took a
to be
couple-
fair, that has completely flipped, and I think that
Yeah.
there are some folks that are still, what's the word I'm looking for? Still a little butthurt about that, but he's been an everyday guy essentially for like the last 3 weeks. Maybe I think he started like off the top of my head 16 of the last 17 games. One healthy, and then there was one due to that little injury scare that he had on the hit by pitch. But they've come around to him being an everyday outfielder for them, and so so he's there. Stowers had a sneaky good weekend. Finally hit a homer, drew walks in each of those games. So maybe he is finally coming out of his slump that he's been in. And other than that, Norby is the one that in this whole lineup, he's kind of been the weakest link for an extended period of time.
I guess the only, I mean, I don't mind this lineup. I don't think it's bad. Like, there's definitely been worse Marlins lineups this year than this, but I think that I can make a gripe about Sanchez hitting second just because of his, it's an average strikeout rate, but it's just not too much in the way of being able to get on base where you want that to be your on base guy. He's hit for a little bit of power. Obviously that's his game, his power. I would probably have swapped him in Otto, but that's my only real gripe and it's splitting hairs. I would probably have flipped Otto for him, but Otto has had his struggles as well, especially with hard hit rate. But his on-base percentages and his on-base rates, especially the walk rate, it's been a little bit better. In the strikeout rates, obviously, been better than Sanchez. So I would have flipped Otto and Sanchez, but I don't think this is one of the worst. I think this is one of the better lineups that this manager has put out, with the exception of the Dane thing that you guys had talked about. I would have probably flipped that for Hicks, but whatever. It doesn't matter. It's kind of splitting hairs, but Otto for Sanchez and Hicks for Myers, that would be my main two switches, but that's it.
Yeah, sorry, Kevin. My main issue with the lineup is Connor, like you guys mentioned, Connor Norby has been the weak link. I don't know. We'll have a conversation with him maybe another time, but having him, who's really slumping, is not exactly very fast. Having him hit directly in front of Dane Myers in that position just completely eliminates any upside of having Dane in that spot. Your best hitter, arguably, who has power, who has speed.
Yeah, Dane should have been hitting higher for sure.
And you have the lefty-righty thing going on there in the bottom part of this lineup. Stowers, Wagman, Hicks really just have Dane at 8. And that's the one thing I have with it, quirk I have with it. We know that the lineups are being made on Excel Plus, but anyway, that's my one quirk.
No, I think if you flop Dane for Hicks, like that's at least respectable. Or even if you flop,
then you have three righties in a row. You got to flip.
No, but even if you go Dane, Hicks, and Norby at 9, like that's, I mean, but you don't want your weakest link at 9 because you want the lineup to turn over, right? So I don't blame them for wanting to turn the lineup over, but I think that's a very microcosmic factor to this lineup, I guess you could say. I would probably have gone with Dane at 7 and then Norby and then Hicks, honestly. Yeah, but that's me.
What makes me grin a little bit is like how much fun discourse we're having about this lineup on a regular season game, and I know that the Marlins did not even take a second look at it when they printed this out and handed it to Clayton.
It starts at a chalkboard, dude.
They don't even look at it. They're like, "This is what the computer said. Take it, post it." That's
it. It's literally. I mean, if there, I don't know this for a fact, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe you can corroborate it, Isaac. If there were a dartboard in Clayton McCullough's office, I wouldn't be surprised.
No, it's not his office. It's probably Bendix's office.
There is no dartboard.
I appreciate Isaac noting Norby, and I think that should be a conversation because he has been terrible. Like, there's no other way to say it. Like, he has not been good, guys. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a guy swing as much as Connor Norby does on the first pitch, and just like the guy just is so aggressive, and it's clearly not working for him this season. He is swinging at 55% of pitches, so he has a swing percentage of 55%. He is swinging at 74.9% of pitches inside the zone, obviously missing because he's striking out almost 30% of the time. He's just not been good, not putting the ball in play. I don't know what's happened. And I know that was one of the biggest things going in when they got him from the trade, which was the underlying numbers aren't really great. Like, yeah, he's been good overall, but the underlying numbers certainly are something to look at, and some of the percentages. And that's now kind of starting to show that, Connor Norby may not be what we once thought. And we were, and someone in our chat noted, we were arguing for this guy to get a pre-arb extension at one point. Like, that would be the guy. And I don't think that's the guy at all. Like, look, like all those underlying numbers are blue. There's a reason why, and it's unfortunate because he's a good guy to have in the clubhouse, I would say. But he is just, man, he is such an aggressive offensive presence that it's just not working out whatsoever.
Well, if you looked at his 2024 baseball savant too, all the same numbers that are blue, they were just as blue last year. I think the one difference is his ability or inability, I should say, to take walks this year. He is just like you said, Kevin, swinging 50% of the time. He is missing 33% of the time. It's tough. I think the defense, I think maybe you could see a little bit of improvement if you would maybe take him off third. I just don't know where you put him if not at third base because the defense.
Well, it's not like he's been terrible at third either. Like he's held his zone for the most part.
Yeah. And if he's got nothing to worry about but offensively, then I don't know what you can do. It's a hard league, man. It's a hard sport. It takes a while for hitters to get adjusted. He's obviously gotten adjusted too. We still see a lot of season left. We're not even at the halfway point. So a lot of time left for him to turn it around.
Last thing on him is just the difference in the slugging. That was the pleasant surprise last year, is how much he was slugging to all fields as well and racking up extra base hits early on. So we're pretty deep into the year, and he's been playing close to every single day since coming back from the IL, and it's only 4 home runs that he's had this entire season. So the expected slugging, as you can see, is actually decent. That's higher than his real life slugging. His actual slugging is 361. If he was up around 425, then you can live with some of the discipline issues if there's decent power to go along with it. So there have been a few swings where you've seen it come out with him, but overall the average exit velo, as you see, well below average. The hard hit rate well below average for a guy that was higher in those regards last year. So that is an interesting and kind of a significant difference. That was going to be the key to him overall for this profile to be something that can work on an everyday basis, is if there's average power or even more than that in it. And so far that has not been the case this year. I wanted to go over to the other side because I think of all the names in here, the one that I want to start with is to me just a superior version of Norby right now. And that's Casey Schmidt, who had some of his own like top prospect hype coming up. And he took longer to put it together. His first couple of tastes of the majors, he didn't hit very much at all. He was hyper aggressive as well. And he's been kind of their everyday third baseman since Matt Chapman went down, even though he's only hitting 7th in their lineup. Things have clicked for him. I've watched a lot more Giants this year than I have in previous years. And the changes he's made have been pretty impressive. He was another guy that was very much a free swinger. And now you see his walk rate is up to 9.6%. That's a little bit above average. The power has come along. And the other key difference is that he's great defensively. I believe he was at some point playing some shortstop for them, and there was a legitimate thought that he could stick there. At the very least, he's a plus defensive third baseman, and a guy that if obviously they're not going to punt on the Norby idea right now during this season, but if you're like looking forward, and he's a guy more so than anybody else in this organization that might be squeezed out moving forward with the Giants, because they have Matt Chapman as their third baseman long term. They have Rafael Devers, and if they actually hold on to their top prospect, Bryce Eldridge, then first base and DH are going to be pretty crowded out. Casey Schmidt is one of those expendable guys that is still pretty valuable. So he's been really helpful to what they're doing, even though he goes under the radar. And to me, like for a Marlins team at this moment, that they don't have a great backup plan at third base if Norby doesn't work out moving forward. Schmidt is the guy that maybe in the off season I would think about as a trade candidate for them.
I hate to be too late, Eli, but I know you just brought Norby back up. And if you want to scroll back over to the left, the one thing to point out that nobody did was the launch angle for Connor Norby of 15.9%. To me, looking at that, upwards of all the blue that is on the rest of his stat line here per Baseball Savant, he's forcing power. He's trying to force power. He's getting way, way, way too much under the baseball and not trying to make an even cut. And I think that is has a lot to do with what his struggles are so far this season, is that he's just trying to force power. And that metric of launch angle right there would prove it, that he is definitely trying to force power in ways that he doesn't have in his game. He needs to be a line drive hitter. He needs to be a guy that goes out there and tries to do the best he can with what he's facing and try not to get too far under the baseball And that launch angle of 15.9% with all of that blue right after it, that's an issue. And he needs to be coached a lot differently than he's being coached. I'm not saying coaching's the issue. It could just be a player thing. Maybe they've tried to coach him in that manner. But that metric right there, that one metric of launch angle of 15.9%, that I think is his main problem. Now we can go on.
It's a good topic. Divisive Connor Norby. Other than that, we see Devers in his usual 2 spot. Heliot Ramos is another guy that I've been watching more this year than I did last year. I know he was already an all-star last season, but watching him more consistently this year, that's a good player. And he's as well-rounded a guy as they have on their entire team right now, even though obviously Devers is going to absorb more of the oxygen in the room now that he's where he is. How about Willie Adames, Kevin? That's a name that came up. Wasn't there like a little period of time where we thought maybe the Marlins would trade for him because their shortstop situation was bad, and we thought the Brewers would make him available. And then he has a decent bounce back year last year, signs that huge deal, and now he's not having a good year at all, offensively or defensively, for this team. Like the Giants kind of surprised people when they spent as much as they did on him in the offseason. And if he turns it around, then they're in really good shape. And he has been better as of late. It's just interesting that they invested as much as they did at a 7-year deal, if I remember correctly, $180 million or so. And to this point, he's buried a lot deeper in their lineup than they probably hoped that he would be when they entered the season.
Yeah, and he's not even the last player they really signed to a big deal. Remember when Soler left the Marlins, they got so desperate that they took Soler and they immediately traded him that same season. So, and I think they're just trying to find a guy who could finally hit, I think, 20 home runs for the first time since I think it was Bonds, or 30. Like, it's been that long since like a big name player has really joined this team and helped them in a big way. And Rafi Devers finally could probably be the first to do that. But you would have really wished that it was Willie Adames to give you some 20 homer power at where they're playing in San Fran. And yeah, I mean, you said it, like he's really struggled this season. Hasn't even been, his month of June has been all right. Hasn't been great. 713 OPS. Yeah, it just hasn't been great. 4 home runs that month, but still, yeah, it's been. But actually, it's certainly been all right. Looked at the numbers specifically. Willie Adames has always been known to be a decent for the most part. So yeah, I mean, 2 outs above average. He's been all right there. So he's been above league average. So yeah, I mean, overall, decent player. Unfortunately, I think maybe the Giants, as they have to do for some reason, just overpay him to bring him over and have a start player on their team. And they really have to not just go out there and get him, but really trade to get Rafael Devers on their team to find that power that they need, at least from, not internally, not a homegrown player, but someone who isn't.
We can look at the starting pitching matchups really quick for this series. It's Quantrill and Verlander tonight, Edward Cabrera versus Logan Webb in the middle game, and then another Jansen Junk start, his second one for the getaway day game on Thursday so far. So with Eddie, he continues to be overall, it's been a really extended good stretch from him, Nate. And as we get closer to the deadline, he's somebody that he takes a backseat to Sandy, understandably so, because of their different track records. But we'll see how he does against more contending teams. He's facing this Giants lineup that is a lot deeper than it used to be, and still a handful of starts leading up before the deadline. That Eddie is a guy that is going to inevitably draw quite a bit of interest as well from some of the same teams that are calling about Sandy at the deadline. Yeah,
I mean, in the Athletics piece a week ago, and now in Jeff Paston and Tyler McDaniel's piece from today, they all the experts seem to be high on Edward Cabrera as a trade candidate, and for good reason. Guys under control for still a couple more years, I believe 3 or 4. I could be wrong about that, but just the improvements he's made this year have been awesome, and it really puts the Marlins in a tough spot. Do you want to get rid of him now that you believe that this is his peak right here, and you don't really believe that he could get better? And it's 4 or 5 years into his career, and you think this is probably the best time to get rid of him now. You're to package for him, or do you want to hold on to him, maybe keep him as a piece for the future, or just drive his value up? And you believe that all the adjustments that he's made have been really significant, and that you can get more for him, in the offseason, or maybe next deadline, or however long you want to keep him for. Because I said he's under control for a couple more years. So interesting predicament the Marlins are in now that Eddie has done so good. A good one for sure, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him. And it's definitely going to be a huge test, like you said, with the Giants, another role of contending teams coming up. So I definitely believe that this is a real thing that Eddie's done. I mean, it's gone on for over a month now, so you'd be a fool to believe it's not real. So, but bigger tests are coming up. But overall, definitely a positive element for this guy. Who we have to keep reminding each other, only 27, so there's still some time there for him.
Yeah, Carver.
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, what I would say, and it's kind of to agree with you, Nate. The situation that the Marlins are kind of trying to find themselves in, or almost finding themselves in, as we lead up to the deadline, is it still is a trade low on Sandy, and what I think would be a very much a trade high on Edward Cabrera, because this is probably the best we've seen Edward Cabrera in a very long time. So do you trade low on Sandy and try to maximize value, or do you trade high on Edward Cabrera and hope that he doesn't fully figure it out for another team? That's kind of the question that Bendix and the Marlins are going to have to answer, is like, okay, do you know that Sandy can fully come back, and do you ride with that because he's a Cy Young winner? Or do you really fully believe that this is Edward Cabrera and that this is the Edward Cabrera that he could be, and you kind of do the trade low on Sandy? That's a very, very, very crucial question that I think Bendix will have to ask himself as he goes into this deadline, especially if Edward keeps it up, especially against the struggling lineup that we see that the Giants have. I think he could. If Edward keeps this up, and if Sandy, I know he had a decent start last time out, but if he keeps kind of going on the same stretch of plans, then there's a real question here. Which one goes? Is it Edward? Is it Sandy? I don't think both will go. I really don't think they'll trade both. I think they'll trade one or the other. But I think the question of who will come down to the last minute, in my opinion.
That's a good point. I was under the impression, I know how the organization feels about Cabrera. I think for some reason, I think they like him more. I'm not saying they think he's a better pitcher right now. I'm not saying that he is a higher ceiling, but they like him more. They're more bullish on him than they are on Sandy. I was going to say that I thought that they would have to be really overwhelmed with an offer to trade Cabrera right now, because you're right. Nate makes a good point as well, in the sense that if these changes are legit and Cabrera continues to shove and shove, there's no price on that. He's got 3 years left of control. You wait till the offseason, you continue going, and you let Cabrera be one of your better starting pitchers behind Yuri, assuming Sandy is traded in that scenario. Sandy continues to have his streak of quality start-ish starts, and you can get a really good package for him as well, because he's got more of a history of being a Cy Young Award-winning pitcher. So I think that it's a really complex situation that the Marlins are in right now. If I had to guess, I would think that Sandy is traded and Cabrera is kept through this year. That would be my guess.
And I don't think that's a bad move either, because you got a guy like Cabrera who's under control for a while. Like Isaac said, if these are real, and I mean, Cabrera's been a really highly regarded prospect from around 2019, 2020. He was projected as that next Sandy, that he has that stuff. I'm not saying he's a workhorse, but he's throwing upper 90s sinkers at a wipeout off speed. He could be that next guy. I'm not saying that he's going to live up to it, but if these adjustments are real and the Marlins believe in him, like Isaac's saying, then I think you keep him around for a little bit longer, get what you can for Sandy. Don't want to sell too low, but I think Sandy's going to ramp his value back up. So it's a fascinating situation for Bendix. I'm really interested to see how he handles it, because it really could affect this organization for years to come, depending on how he handles it.
Yeah, it is the thing to watch. I mean, I think it really is the thing to watch for this team as they come into this deadline. And you have help coming. Like, we've seen Mazur already. You'll see Thomas White, I think, pretty shortly. Probably by next season, we could see Thomas White make an impact on this organization. There's help coming. We know what's in the minors. Robbie Snelling, he's there too. There's help here to be had. And if you're betting on pure stuff, Edward Cabrera's your guy. That's just it. Like, he has the best raw stuff. We've known that for a while. He just needs to handle it. He's handling it lately. Sandy's starting to come back. If Sandy keeps making inroads and continuing to, improve off of his last start, I don't think that's a wrong move to make, but it would be one that would hurt for fans. Maybe there are fans that don't fully believe still in Edward Cabrera. I don't blame you, but if he keeps on his route that he's going, and if Sandy can continue to kind of try to get a little bit better, and you can get at least close to what you thought you could get out of him previously, that's a trade that the Marlins are going to have to discuss. And I think one of them will be gone. Who is it going to be at this point? I think we need to see it a little bit more, but I think I would agree with Isaac at this point that, and I can't believe I'm saying that, because I was the lowest. I think out of all of us, I was the person that was the lowest on Cabrera out of all of us. And he's starting to prove me wrong. And I will be, I told Daniel Alvarez this, I will be glad to be proven wrong, And he's starting to do that. So if that continues, it becomes the conversation. Who do you trade, Edward or Sandy? One of them is going to go. We got to see who it's going to be.
But like you said, and this is where I'll kind of just go against what a little bit. Like if Edward Cabrera, obviously on a run right now that we haven't seen, goes back to looking like Edward Cabrera, the value is going to go back down. The value has never been higher for Edward Cabrera as it is right now. So
You're right.
you have to ask yourself, you trade him and you trade Sandy. Like I think that would make a lot of sense. You'd be getting a haul for both of them. And there's a lot of teams that would be a lot more desperate now for a starting pitcher than they would in the offseason, meaning the offer will never be better for Edward Cabrera. Because if Edward Cabrera looks like the Edward Cabrera we thought we were going to see in 2025, then you're not going to get the greatest offer, and they're not going to move him. They're not going to be able to move him because
That's why I say that they will have to be. Someone would have to overpay and overoffer for Cabrera. I agree.
Yeah, and I think someone will because someone's going to bet on the upside regardless. And you're right,
but he also does have a long track record of being not good. So I don't mean to say that as like that he's not going to be good in the future, but the past history of him is that he has done stuff like maybe not to this extent, but he has had good stretches before, and then he's proven us to go the opposite direction or get hurt, right? So you have to take history into effect as well, Kevin. And I'm not saying you're wrong that they could trade both, but I think like what Isaac is saying, they would have to be pretty overwhelmed to trade both pitchers.
Yeah, durability is also a concern, just like with Max Meyer with Cabrera. I think a team is going to be level-headed with Cabrera. With Sandy, if this continues, they will be willing to hand it over because it's not just for this playoff run. It'll be for the next 2 seasons, assuming they pick up that option. But after the next season, there's going to be a lockout anyway, so maybe they don't even care that much about that 3rd season.
Without further ado, we got to get
fascinating conversation. We'll continue to talk about it. I'm sure
it was, and that's why I stretched out the stream even longer than usual. We do have to squeeze in our predictions before first pitch, so let's get to that.
This is prediction time.
I think we're going to win a lot of games, a lot more games than you think we're going to win this year.
A very quick look at our prediction time leaderboard with our super subs, our staff members, and our live stream guests. That's what it looks like through the first 25 or so series of the regular season. We are coming up on the halfway point, but still a lot of time, maybe not a lot of time for Nate and myself and Isaac and Carver, but Kevin still has a chance. So people, you have 11 minutes left if you're a super sub to go on to our website and leave your prediction there, or in our Discord channel inside the Marlins Discord server. You can submit those also as well. And we keep track of your predictions all season long. How many games the Marlins are going to win? Who is going to be the series MVP as determined by win probability added? This is a 3-game series between the Marlins and the Giants. So let me get the background music going, and then we'll start with Kevin, as we often do.
I'm going to go with the Marlins taking 2 out of 3. And my series MVP is going to be, I'm going to go with Augustin Ramirez. I think he had a pretty nice series for the most part against the Braves. I think he'll keep it up against the Giants. He'll go deep twice in this series.
Isaac Azut, your predictions.
Out at the Bay, I think Miami loses 2 out of 3. Rafael Devers is gonna come through with a big series for his new team.
Nate Karsmer, your turn.
I'm going to keep my pessimism train going. I got the Giants taking 2 out of 3. And shout out to my friend Kevin Wall. I got former FIU Panther commit Elliot Ramos taking on the series MVP this time around.
There you go.
Alex Carver, your series prediction, sir.
Ooh, weird microcosm here. I will say, yeah, she's over there. I will say Marlins 2 out of 3, and he's pitching this series, right? Yeah, he is. I will say shout out to my boy Danny Alvarez. Edward Cabrera.
Look at that.
I have the Giants winning 2 out of 3 in this particular series. They're a really good team right now. And their results have actually been up and down, but I do think they have a pretty significant talent advantage right here. Closely fought series, as a lot of Marlins series have been as of late. I'll go with Mike Yastrzemski as the series MVP. The overall number is kind of clouded, but he's been consistently great over the last 3 weeks or so with him. Overall, he's had a sneaky great career for the Giants, and I think he's going to slug quite a bit over these next few games, heading near the top of the lineup for the Giants against all the Marlins right-handers. So Giants take 2 out of 3. Marlins drop back down to 15 games below 500. There we go. Extra long stream for people, 1 hour and 5 minutes. Hope you all enjoyed what we do. More of these streams before every single Marlins series throughout the season. So I think the next one tentatively going to be another very late night with us heading into the D-back series. Hope you join us between now and then. All our coverage on fishonfirst.com, of course. Support us even more so if you want to shop the FOF collection at aboutthefans.com. Coupon code FOF10 to save 10% off your order at checkout. I've been Eli Sussman with Kevin and Nate and Alex Carver and Isaac. This has been FOF Live. Go Fish.
Fish on First has partnered with About the Fans to launch a merchandise collection. Rep the FOF logo in more Marlins-inspired apparel. Find it all at aboutthefans.com. Enter coupon code FOF10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. FOF10 for a 10% discount.